I'm so happy to be back in London, my home city. I've been away a lot. I was touring in America and I got out, which is not a given in the current climate. After I got back, people kept saying, so how's it going in America? How do you fucking think it's going? Not good. Nothing works anymore because they fired all the people that know how to make a country work and replaced them with one single pimple-faced 23-year-old piece of shit in the name of governmental efficiency, whose only qualification is that in 2016 he tweeted a racial slur at Michelle Obama from a Twitter account named @PussySmasher69, and he's there under the direct orders of their president, who in many ways is the modern Reagan, in that he is a celebrity homophobe, visibly addled by dementia, and his far right-hand man, Elon Musk, a man whose sole goal is he wakes up every day and thinks, how is it possible for me to be one day named history's worst white South African? And he could do it, man. Elon could do it. I believe in him. Now look, we will come to the American election anon, but let us just start by reminding everybody that we had an election in our country. Yeah, that's right, on the 4th of July last year, a different kind of Independence Day, but it was a sad day for me and my community, because we lost a good brother that day, Rishi Sunak. A brother downed in the midst of his professional prime, and it brought to an end a 2-year period where me and my community were represented at the highest level of politics in this country. Because Rishi Sunak represented me and he represented my community. Because Rishi Sunak is British, he's Indian, and he's a cunt. And this was huge. This was huge for my community. The British Indian cunts, the BIC. I never said which community. This was huge for the BIC. When I was growing up as a young POC person of cunt, I assumed that if someone of my ethnicity became Prime Minister, there'd be some nice guy. No, fucking hedge fund guy. They may as well have got an axe murderer on the ethical scale. And if you're thinking, Nish, were you a cunt? Oh, I was a cunt. When I was at school, I was the president of my school's debating society, which I founded. Oh, what a cunt. And now I know how all the white cunts have felt in this country all of these years, looking at the Prime Minister. Because it's been an unbroken streak of white cunt after white cunt after white cunt, brackets female. And now I know how good it feels to see yourself reflected back in your political leadership. Because when I looked at Rishi Sunak, I saw myself. Because when I looked at Rishi Sunak, I saw an under-talented, over-promoted British Indian man struggle and eventually fail to connect with the majority of the people in his country. And I thought, representation matters. Oh, it matters so much. Rough couple of years for the South Asians in this country. Let me tell you, we have been the face of some of the stupidest politics in this country's history. And while it was happening, we've been told, regardless of your politics, the South Asian community must be pleased with the representation. And now it's happening to my cousins in America because of right-wing Indian Republicans like Kash Patel and Vivek Ramaswamy. Regardless of your politics, you must be pleased with the political representation. Firstly, you can't say regardless of your politics when the people you're talking about are fucking politicians. Secondly, stop telling people from marginalised communities that we should be proud when individuals from our communities get into positions of political power by promising to enact policies that discriminate against our own and other marginalised communities. It's stupid fucking shit, man. Listen, I love the South Asian community and I want us to succeed all over the world, but not at the expense of other marginalised people. I want us to succeed at the expense of white people, and I think I've actually been incredibly clear about that from minute one. Relax, honkies, I'm just fucking with you. The original title of the show was Fucking with the Honkies before the suits at head office cracked down in yet another example of cancel culture run amok. And what these right-wing South Asians in America are about to discover is what the right-wing South Asians in Britain discovered, that to their white bosses, they are eminently replaceable and fundamentally interchangeable. If you think Donald Trump can tell the difference between Kash Patel, Vivek Ramaswamy, or any Mexican, then you are fucking high on crystal meth. The white racists in this country can't tell the difference between me and my friend and comedic colleague Ramesh Ranganathan, and he is Sri Lankan and wears glasses. And listen, you can't make sweeping statements like the South Asian community must feel any one thing about anything. Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, that's too many different countries and cultures. Even if you mean Indians, do you mean Hindus, do you mean Muslims? It's too many different cultures. There is only one crass sweeping generalization you can make about a large section of the South Asian community, and that is this: every South Asian woman over the age of 60 loves Princess Diana. They all fucking love Princess Diana, and I'm right, aren't I, brown woman? I always have visible browns. Get that visible brown woman on the camera right now. I always have VBs, visible browns, to verify my remarks about the community. They fucking love Princess Diana, right? And they all think the royal family killed her. And they think about it so much that if you just ran up to my mum in the street and just said, they killed her, she'd say, yeah, I think it was Philip. That is the extent to which it obsesses them. And who do you think they hate most that's still left in the royal family? Camilla, or as my mother calls her, that woman. That is how my mother refers to the reigning Queen of England, by the phrase, that woman. And at one point, during the interminable coronation process, they were going to give that woman the Queen Mother's old crown. Now, this is a controversial object, because it contains within it the largest remaining piece of the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This is a diamond British troops stole from India, smashed, and placed the largest remaining piece of in the Queen Mother's old crown. Now, that whole story was a surprise to me as someone who studied British history in the British education system. Because as far as I learned, all we did in India was just be cool legends, and all we came back with were some great memories and the word veranda. But no, it turns out there were some proper bad apples on the rock. So they decided to not use that crown because it's genuinely a diplomatic incident in prospect, and they stood it down and got a different crown from the crown shed. I don't know where these people keep their fucking crowns. I don't care to know it either, right? But when they stood that crown down, my mother phoned me and said, it's a good thing they're not giving that crown to that woman. And I said, first of all, hello, Bina, how are you? And she said, if they'd have given that crown to that woman, I'd have gone down there, and ripped out the jewel myself. Now listen, none of us in this room, least of all me, wants to see my mother assassinated by the Secret Service. But I think we can all also agree, if she had gone down there, it would have livened up the most boring day of television in the history of this country that we somehow managed to inflict on the entire fucking world. Boy, we really evened the score for giving everyone Fleabag with that fucking shit, man. But imagine how much more fun it would have been if in the middle of the ceremony, one of the correspondents would have had to say something like this, and now, in a tradition that dates back to... Oh! There seems to be a South Asian woman over the age of 60 running towards Camilla Parker Bowles screaming, give me back my jewels, this should have been Diana's, you whore! Why do we still have a royal family, guys? How the fuck has that slipped through the goddamn modernisation net? Jesus fucking Christ. How is it possible? It's 2025. That's too high a number. You can't have electric cars and a king. That's so fucking weird. Full disclosure, I got the old lady, okay? I got the old lady, or to give her full title, Her Majesty, the Old Lady. I got the old lady. She connected people to the war. She meant something to people all over the world. But I assumed, and I don't think I'm the only one, that when the old lady kicked the fucking diamond-encrusted bucket, we'd be done with the entire fucking lot of them. I just assumed our country was like one of those families where everyone's waiting for the grandparents to die so they can all be gay. That's what I thought was happening, just waiting for a generation to respectfully pass away so you can live normal lives and kiss whoever the fuck you want to kiss, man. And we should talk more about why they're in that position. They are in that position because of something we believe in called the divine right of kings. We believe that they are there because God put them in that position. And we should say that more often because we realise how fucking stupid the entire thing is. Also, it would enable us to be less angry with them as individuals. Everyone made fun of Prince Harry because they said he wasn't able to deliver on contracts he was awarded by Netflix and Spotify. Now, I am sorry, but that is the fault of Netflix and Spotify. Why in the name of God would you give a work contract to a man whose CV is just a piece of paper that says, Jesus made my granny magic? Why would you do that? And in December, we found out the cost to the British taxpayer of the coronation. £72 million. I'm going to be honest with you, Hackney, you might be sat there thinking, well, that doesn't work out as much per taxpayer, but it's stuck in my throat. Because in 2008, the financial crisis happened, and we have simply never recovered. And every time since then, we've gone to our government and said, hey, we need some money to fix our schools, hospitals, or feed our poor children. And they said, no, there's no money. So I'm going to be honest with you. It fucking stuck in the throat to find out that someone in the treasury in our country went down the back of a fucking sofa cushion and managed to find £72 million of our money and then spent it so they could have a party to pop a gold hat on a paedophile's brother. That does stick in the throat somewhat. Now, because we're filming this for legal reasons... For legal reasons, I am legally required to say that I don't think Prince Andrew is a paedophile. That wasn't a wink, that was just a fun one-eye blink. I'm legally required to say I don't think Prince Andrew is a paedophile. I'm not calling him any of the following phrases: megapede, ultrapede, supernons. At no point am I saying, say Drew, I hear you like I'm young. I am not saying any of those things. However, I was about to talk about him on a radio programme here, and I consulted a professional libel lawyer who okayed the following phrase: paedophile adjacent. It is legally fine to describe the King's brother and the President of America by the phrase paedophile adjacent, because there are multiple photos of both of them next to Jeffrey Epstein. Therefore, they are literally adjacent to a paedophile and can be described as such in the broadcast and print media. My gift to you, Hackney, do with it what you will. And listen, as we reflect on Rishi Sunak's career, the first ethnic minority person to be Prime Minister of the UK, it is worth noting something, right? He was the victim of racist abuse. Now, it's a racist abuse he would frequently fail to acknowledge for reasons of his own personal political ambition, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there. Of course, Rishi Sunak was the victim of racism. He tried to be Prime Minister before he was actually Prime Minister and lost to Liz Truss, a white woman so stupid, scientists now believe she was breastfed by a car exhaust. And then on the 6th of June last year, something happened. It was the 80th anniversary of the D-Day celebration, and they had a massive event with world leaders everywhere. Rishi Sunak attended but left early so he could give a television interview as part of the general election campaign. Now, to be clear, even I know he shouldn't have done that. Even me, communist McBrownface, knows... You don't fuck around with D-Day. You respect the people who died on D-Day. You don't turn Saving Private Ryan off after the first hour just because that's the best bit of the film. You stay and watch till the boring end to respect the greatest generation. Now, so Sunak, it was right to criticise him, but some of the criticism he received was absolutely, at the very least, racially charged, okay? Nigel Farage, the Donald Trump-approved leader of a far-right political party in this country who was at the D-Day celebration. Hey, quick question. Why the fuck are we inviting the leaders of far-right political parties to the goddamn D-Day celebration? For balance, are we legally required to have people there to represent the losing side of fucking D-Day? Farage said that Sunak had left early because he did not understand our culture, right? Now, what is that? That's the most powerful person of colour that's ever lived in this country being told that he doesn't belong by a man who continues to sit in the Houses of Parliament to this day. In America, a black person becomes president. What happens? A game show host demands to see his birth certificate, and that game show host was just re-elected as their fucking president. And when you don't acknowledge racism when it's aimed at powerful people of colour, it has consequences for ordinary people. And in summer 2024, those consequences boiled over. There were race riots in the United Kingdom. A mob full of people chanting pro-Hitler slogans attacked a hotel with refugees and asylum seekers in it in our country. And the thing that broke me the most was the next day, on the news, all of these white so-called moderate commentators appeared and started saying, these riots are the fault of immigrant communities. This is what happens when immigrants fail to integrate. It's an allegation we hear a lot, that immigrant communities fail to integrate in predominantly white countries, and that's the cause of racial unrest. And I had to think about it, and do you know what I realised? We're incredible at integration. We come to these countries and we build identities that acknowledge the cultures and traditions of where our parents are from, from, but also acknowledge the cultures and traditions of where we are right now. 2 years ago, I went to my cousin's wedding in Edinburgh, Scotland. Half the guests were wearing saris and kurtas, and the other half were wearing fucking kilts. Last year, India and Pakistan played a cricket match in England. Halfway through the game, the majority British South Asian crowd abandoned their seats so they could watch on television in the bowels of the stadium the England football team compete in a penalty shootout in that summer's European Championships. We are incredible at integration. You know who's bad at integration? White people. And you know how I know? You know how I know that? I've just been on tour. Guess where I went? Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and America. And I've got to be honest with you, the white people don't seem to be very integrated with the people that were there when they arrived. Canada and New Zealand are not particularly integrated, and they are, and this is a horrible phrase, some of the better whites. As for Australia, they had a vote to see if they could integrate their indigenous communities more closely into their constitution, and they voted no. As for America, unless that movie is called The Integrators of the Flower Moon, and I missed the entire fucking point of it, they got a few problems as fucking well. And now I think that's what white people think we've come to do to you in your countries. Murder all of you, steal your land, and then pretend it was ours to begin with. No, that's your thing. You're fucking weird. We're only in these countries to kick it, make a bit of money and participate in a cultural exchange. Teach you some stuff, learn some stuff from you. We've already taught you about seasoning your food and dancing rhythmically, and in return you have given us Meryl Streep and being on time. We're all learning things. But we can't move off this subject, can we, without acknowledging that we are in the United Kingdom, aka the Mac Daddy of dogshit white integration. Thanks to a 250-year integration project conducted by the aristocracy of our country that brought death, disease and genocide to all four corners of the globe, left us with a string of geopolitical problems that continue to haunt us to this day, and worst of all, nearly resulted in one of my jewels going in a crown on that woman's fucking head! We would have given it to Diana. We would have given it to Diana. We would have given Diana the Koh-i-Noor diamond. That's how much we love Diana, peace be upon her. And when I looked at the faces of those people in the race riots, twisted and contorted with rage, I was furious, but I also understand they're only pawns in a game, and we need to be angry with the powerful people responsible for instigating this hate. Don't be angry with the guy in the red MAGA hat at the Trump rally. Be angry with the guy in the black MAGA hat who bankrolled the Trump campaign. And when I look at these race rioters, their features twisted and contorted with rage, and when I look at Elon Musk, a thought does occur: when will there be one good-looking white supremacist? When will there be one white supremacist that is visible evidence for the genetic superiority of the white race? I'm going to be honest with you, if Brad Pitt came out as a white supremacist, we'd all say, hear him out, because that guy has got cheekbones for days, months, weeks and years. It's never Brad Pitt, it's never Margot Robbie. It's always cunts who look like Steve Bannon, who seems to have caught leprosy of the entire face and head. Or Elon Musk, who looks like someone tried to stretch skin over a shipping container. Every time I see this motherfucker on the television, all I can think is, why doesn't your skin fit, bro? He looks like the cockroach at the beginning of Men in Black, with the skin suit not fitting properly on him. Shagawala, Gemna Shagawala. And they keep doing Hitler salutes. Why do they keep doing Hitler salutes? Answer, because they're Nazis. Again, for legal reasons, Nazi adjacent. And one of the first people to defend Elon Musk when he did a Hitler salute was Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. And the reason he did that is Benjamin Netanyahu is a fucking piece of shit, and there is no depth to the hell that man deserves to be consigned to. I am furious by what our governments are sanctioning in Gaza at the moment. I am livid about it. But here's the thing, I'm 39 years old, so for the first time in my life, I'm watching something with a sense of dread and familiarity, right? Because this is the first time we're old enough, people my age, to see something bad happen again. Because if you take all of the history and context out of it in Gaza, which people seem to really want to fucking do, and just start from October the 7th, even then, the 9/11 parallels are overwhelming, right? A terrorist attack happens. It's appalling. But I thought what we had learned is what you must not do do is murder and kill innocent civilians who bear no responsibility for the terrorist attack. It doesn't make anyone safer. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan didn't make any of us safer. This war is making one man safer, and that man's name is Benjamin Netanyahu. And when I look at the news, I am filled with dread and familiarity. I'm going to be completely honest with you though, Hackney. It is not an unfamiliar sensation for me. It's the same combination of dread and familiarity I feel every time I see a teenager today walking around with jeans that drag in the mud, or I read on the New York Times that Limp Bizkit is blowing up on TikTok. I think, Jesus fucking Christ, they're bringing back all the worst things from the early 2000s. Low-rise jeans, new metal, and the war on terror. Why are these the things we're bringing back? Back me up here, millennials. There was better stuff that happened in that period. We could be wearing statement necklaces, watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and shaking it like a Polaroid picture. And look, we are at a crucial tipping point for our civilization. There is an ascendant movement of ethno-nationalist Christian white supremacy that is coming for us. It's found its most successful incarnation in a generation in the re-election of Donald Trump as president. That instigated Canada and Australia to have elections where there was a reaction against pro-Trump politicians. But in Germany, in February, the AfD won 20% of the vote, making them the second largest party in the German parliament. That is the literal descendants of the Nazi party. And what we need now desperately is some unity. We got to rebuild the shattered bonds of solidarity between groups that should be standing shoulder to shoulder with each other. White working class people, your enemies are not immigrants or people of colour. Those are groups that should be standing shoulder to shoulder with each other. Cisgendered women, your enemies are not transgendered women. Those are groups that should be standing shoulder to shoulder with each other. And what we need right now, Hackney, is a little unity. And tonight, let's just all come together and do nothing more than this. Agree on a single idea to take away. And let that idea be this. When Trump was shot at that rally, we would prefer he died. Let's just be honest here. Okay, wait! You fucking agitated East London hipsters. Just wait! I know you're excited. Just wait, okay? Let me just fully contextualise what I'm trying to say here. There might be some dodgy right-wing journalist in the back who's going to try and take what I've said out of context. I will not be Tenacious D, okay? Jack Black will not disown me, Hackney. I will get this visa renewed. Let me just fully contextualise what I'm trying to say, okay? My first preference is that he had never been shot at all. Don't boo that. My first preference is that he'd never been shot. That wasn't me, American Visa Board. That was a man. My first preference is that he'd never been shot at all. That's my preference for every single person in the world. Also, I studied history. I know what happened with the Reichstag fire. Hitler used it as an excuse to suspend democratic freedoms, norms, and accountabilities in Germany. I fear that that's what Trump's going to do, okay? So that's my first preference. My second preference is that given that he was shot at, could it not have been to completion? That's all I'm saying. Where was Luigi? We all asked the same question. Where was Luigi? Say what you will about Luigi Mangione, the man who assassinated a healthcare CEO in the street in New York. Separate the morality of what he did and just acknowledge the marksmanship. That's all I'm asking you to do. These cunts praise Trump's here. I don't even know how that's fucking possible, right? The guy Luigi shot is very dead. These are the facts. And listen, I will acknowledge that even in this room, there is a tension. As you all comprehend, if you've been caught on camera and if that compromises your trip to Disneyland. But let me just say, I've recently completed a 20-city tour of the United States of America where I did this material every night. When I returned back to the UK, my friend said, I'll be honest, I assumed you'd be assassinated. But obviously the Americans that came to see me, they're furious leftists as well. They agreed. And also they understand something powerful, that Trump is a threat to most Americans, right? If you're an immigrant or a person of colour, he's a threat to you, right? If you're a member of the LGBTQIA community, he's a threat to you. If you're a woman, he's a threat to your bodily autonomy. If you're a working class person, he's a threat to you. You can only finance his tax cuts by further cuts to Medicaid, okay? He's a threat to most Americans. That puts most Americans in the same boat as the rest of us, because he is a threat to the entire rest of the goddamn world. I hate when Americans say, why do you care so much about our elections? We don't want to care about your fucking elections. No one in this room wants to lose another night's sleep waiting for counties outside Atlanta to report. None of us wants to do that. But the sad reality is it has consequences for all of us. A couple of weeks ago, he announced a tariff policy that involved him writing numbers on a big piece of card, and the whole thing looked like a deleted episode of The Price is Right. And now, the stock market's tanked and no one has pensions anymore, right? He summons Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky to the Oval Office and tells him off. Now, we shouldn't have been surprised about that. That's him sticking up for his friend. Who's his friend? Vladimir Putin. He can't have a go at Scooby-Doo for sticking up for Shaggy. That's not how things work. He's going to supervise a policy that's tantamount to ethnic cleansing in Gaza because of his friendship with his fellow fucking piece of shit Benjamin Netanyahu. Also, for younger people in the room, this should concern you more than anything else. He has total hostility to climate science. He's going to roll back provisions in the American legal system, and there is a strong argument to be made that he will be personally responsible for a genocide in the Southern Hemisphere over the next decade. All of which, taken with the fact that if he had been successfully assassinated, the man that would have run in his stead, J.D. Vance, is someone I think we can all agree is a human charisma vacuum. Of course, with a fucking Indian wife. Oh, you must be so pleased with the representation. Which means I think we can all come together and agree, and I am making you legally complicit in what I'm about to say. Get the cameras on the crowd. I am making you legally complicit in what I'm about to say. It means we can all come together and agree that whilst our first preference is that he had never been shot at all, our second preference is that given that he was shot at, which remember was not our first preference, given that he was shot at, could it not have been by someone with better aim? That's all we're saying, Hackney. That's all we've ever been saying, isn't it? And listen, if there is someone in here from the right-wing press that's trying to take me out of context and quote what I've said, I just want you to know I am recording this gig, okay? I have the voice memos app open. I know that we're filming it. I don't trust any one of these fucking camera people whose names I never learned. I don't know who any of them is. I don't fucking trust them, so I'm keeping a record for myself. And if there is anyone in here from the US Department of Homeland Security, then my name is Ramesh Ranganathan. Thank you. All of which is an elaborate way of saying, welcome to the show. Good to see you, Hackney. What a pleasure to be back in this theatre. Now, that is a fucking intense opening 25 minutes. And the people I feel most sorry for are the plus ones. Oh, I feel sorry for the plus ones. Because that's how it broke down, wasn't it? There's the person who bought the ticket, and then there's the person sat next to the person who bought the ticket, some of whom are looking at me with total fear in their eyes, and a facial expression that seems to scream, you weren't like this on Taskmaster. Where's Greg Davis? The doors are locked. Greg can't save you now. Now, look, what I should have done is come out and contextualise who I am for the plus ones, because I know you loosely know me as a comedian, but the person who brought you along tonight knows me for doing something specific within comedy. And I'm aware of how the people that know my work best perceive me because of something that happened during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I was on one of my state-sanctioned daily walks in the fucking park that we all took for a year and pretended to enjoy, and I was on the phone to my brother who lives in Germany, and he was saying, how's things going in the UK? Now, this was April of 2020, so cast your minds back and remember it was Cock-a-doodle. So I said, the Conservative Party's trying to fucking kill us, man. They're trying to fucking murder us all. This is Waco, Texas, and Johnson has gone full David Koresh. They're starting with the elderly and the disabled, but they'll get to all of us eventually. Of course, no one was able to get Boris Johnson to wear a mask. No one could get the cunt to wear a condom. We are fucked! I'm saying this, I make contact with a guy, eye contact, and I think that guy recognised me, but he didn't say anything, so I thought, well, my mistake, I guess he didn't recognise me. Then I got home, I found out that man definitely recognised me, because that man had taken to the social networking website, formerly known as Twitter, and written the following: I saw at Mr. Nish Kumar in the park today, and it turns out it's not a character. No! It's not a fucking character. What was he expecting? That he'd see me in the park and I'd be saying, I tricked him. I love racism and the free market. Why would this be a character? Also, what kind of character would this be? Like I'd boot polish my face and my real name's Nick Cooper. This is not a character. Hi, I'm Nick Cooper. I call my parents by their first names and I wear my shoes indoors. This is not a fucking character. I am like this all the fucking time. I am this intense all the fucking time. Even if you weren't here, this is what I would be doing. The fact that you are here is a great source of relief from a mental health perspective, and also, without wishing to be crass, a financial one as well. But the reality is this is who I am, this is what I am like all the fucking time, which makes it even more nonsensical what a friend of mine did to me recently. A friend of mine fed back some criticism of my comedy that one of his friends made. He said this: look, I think your mate Nish is funny, but couldn't he leave the politics aside for a second and just do some jokes about the things in his fridge? How the fuck am I supposed to fucking fridge material into this fucking show? Do you want to hear the real set list for this show? This is the real set list for tonight's show. We've done the first three: elections, integration, unity. Here's what we've got left: complicity, art, radicalisation, death, anxiety, rage. That is the real set list for the comedy show that you have paid to see, Hackney. And my question for you is this: where does the fucking fridge stuff go? No one got any suggestions? Okay, let's press on. Point number one of the humour show: complicity. The thing that I'm struggling with, amongst all the shit that's fucking going on at the moment, is the number of comedians that are now coming out in support of some of these fucking disgusting ideologies. It's making me feel sick. Now, I'm going to attempt to do the next 10 minutes of this show without naming a single comedian. Because my agent has said, can you not, when you're filming this show, go on stage, slag off comedians, and then say their names? And when I said why, she said, because it's my email address on your website. And it turns out Ricky Gervais's fans are as unpleasant as Ricky Gervais. So, don't fucking clap that. Don't clap that. What have I just said to you? You are enablers of my toxic behaviour. For context, for why these people are clapping, Ricky Gervais and I, good old Richard, are embroiled in a show business feud in the United Kingdom. I've said terrible things about him on stage. He's saying terrible things about me on stage. The reasons I said terrible things about him on stage are twofold. Reason number one, I genuinely believe that Ricky Gervais and comedians like him's hostile targeting of the transgender community has created an atmosphere of rhetorical cruelty that is translating itself into a wave of anti-transgender legislation that is sweeping the world. That is a vulnerable minority that is being targeted, and the comedy industry is complicit in that targeting, and it has a moral obligation to speak out. That's point number one. Point number two, I didn't think he'd find out. Okay, I didn't think he would find out. Ricky Gervais and I are not on the same rung of the show business ladder. He gets millions of dollars every year from Netflix, and my last contract with a streaming service was with an app called Quibi, whose business model was, what if YouTube wasn't free, but was worse? We're not on the same goddamn rung of the show business ladder, okay? But listen, I've said terrible things about him. I don't regret saying any of them, but I'm not going to say anything more about him. And I said to my agent, don't worry, we're filming this, and I will attempt to not say a single comedian's name. That is my promise to you. But some of these cunts, man, are fucking doing shit. Tony Hinchcliffe, I've already said her name. Tony Hinchcliffe opened for Trump at his rally in Madison Square Gardens that the New York Times directly compared to one that happened at the same venue in 1939 in favour of the Nazi Party. Joe Rogan is essentially acting as a protein powder-addled Joseph Goebbels for the Trump administration. If anyone doesn't know who Joe Rogan is, imagine if someone got a load of ham and made it into the shape of the Thing from the Fantastic Four and then brought it to life with a witch's curse. That's who Joe Rogan is. It's fucking insane, and it's not just Americans getting in on the association with disgusting ideologies. Jimmy Carr went on Jordan Peterson's podcast. Who's Jordan Peterson? He's an academic, citation needed. And the reason I say citation needed, Jordan Peterson beefed himself into a coma. Now, I imagine those of you hearing this story for the first time will assume some exaggeration. Those of you who seem to be familiar with the story can confirm I am not exaggerating in any way, shape or form, am I? Jordan Peterson put himself and his wife on an all-raw meat diet because he said we needed to eat in a manner closer to the cave people who famously largely ate berries in order to improve our physical and mental well-being. Surprisingly, from the all-raw meat diet, his wife became incredibly unwell. From the stress of her becoming unwell, Jordan Peterson became addicted to painkillers, an addiction which was treated by Russian doctors when they placed him into a controlled coma. So when I say he beefed himself into a coma, I'm not speaking metaphorically. I don't mean he argued his way into a state of emotionally distressed catatonia. I mean he beefed himself into a coma! But the main reason I question Jordan Peterson's credentials as an academic is he has an attitude to women that would cause someone from the Old Testament to say, get with the times, Grandad, okay? You can't call them that anymore. You can stone them to death, but you can't call them that anymore. He's at the vanguard of a new wave of misogynist radicalizers, the manosphere they call it. They're trying to radicalize our young boys and men and turn them into another generation of men that attack and kill women. It's a fucking disgrace that he did that shit. Now, all of you are sat there thinking, well, that's all very well and good, Nish, but Jimmy Carr is a colleague of yours and you could have said this to his face. I fucking did! In a conversation that I continue to characterise as a heated but respectful exchange between two co-workers. But in the interest of balance, I should tell you a witness, James Acaster, described as a frenzied attack. And to be fair to history's most unlikely Ghostbuster, he does have a point, okay? Acaster and I were performing shows at the Montreal Comedy Festival in Canada. We were having a conversation in a corridor. Out of nowhere, Jimmy Carr just turned his head in around the corner and immediately started saying hello to both of us. And I immediately screamed in his face, which is a surprise because I'm normally such a mild-mannered man. He appeared and I went, Jimmy, what the fuck are you doing? Because this is not a character. Screamed in his face and I said, you should not have gone on that guy's fucking podcast, man. This is a guy who's turning young boys into another generation of men that are going to attack and kill women. This is a fucking radicalization event that's happening on an unprecedented scale. And he said, ooh, I don't know. Not going on people's podcasts sounds a bit like cancel culture to me. And I said, oh! Is that cancel culture now, is it? Not going on podcasts with people. In which case, guess what happened to me today, guys? Beyoncé cancelled me. As she has done every day, she has refused to appear on a podcast with me. Why, Miss Carter Knowles? Why hast thou forsaken me? I've been with you since Bills. How could you do this to me? And then he said, I actually pulled Jordan Peterson up on some of his more controversial points of view. And I said, no, you fucking didn't. And he said, how do you know? And I said, because I listened to the whole goddamn thing. And he said, why did you do that? And I said, because you have no idea of my ability to spoil my own afternoon. I will fucking ruin my own afternoon watching things or listening to them that I know are going to upset me. I did it with a documentary Jimmy Carr made. I watched the entire thing, even though I knew going in that it would upset me. The premise of the documentary was asking, is it possible to enjoy good art made by a bad person? Now, I have two problems with this. Firstly, who the fuck fucking cares, man? Who gives a fucking shit, man? Of course it's possible to enjoy good art made by a bad person. Just because you danced to Billie Jean at a wedding doesn't make you complicit. They're not going to put you in an R. Kelly documentary. It's not going to hard cut from a producer who continued to work with him after they heard allegations of sexual abuse to you, Graham 42 from Hackney, who found himself nodding his head to the Ignition remix at a colleague's retirement party. That's never going to fucking happen. We've all enjoyed good art made by bad people. When I was a teenager, I was a tremendous fan of the cinema of Woody Allen. But even Woody Allen's most ardent defenders would have to admit, if in speaking in defence of someone, you find yourself saying this, legally she was never his stepdaughter, he's probably a shitty dude. Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, we've all enjoyed good art made by bad people, which is why, whenever we talk about this subject, we should take a second to thank Russell Brand for producing nothing of cultural, artistic, or aesthetic value in his entire career and thus saving us this awkward conversation. Because I don't care who you are, no one heard the allegations of sexual assault levelled against Russell Brand and immediately thought, but how will I enjoy Get Him to the Greek? What about my annual Easter Sunday Hop rewatch jamboree? No, Russell Brand is and always has been a talentless rapist. Now again, for legal reasons, I'm required to say this, allegedly. But for moral reasons, I'm required to add the words a lot. Allegedly, but a fuck of a lot. So my first problem with the documentary was at a philosophical level. My second problem with the documentary is, do you know which artist they chose to profile and ask the question, is it possible to enjoy good art made by a bad person? Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, 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 Adolf Hitler. You know, the artist. Adolf Hitler, the famous artist. Listen, man, it's all fucking stupid, right? There's no point in saying, is it possible to enjoy good art made by a bad person? Of course it fucking is. Half of growing up is understanding that you emotionally responded to work made by people whose morals didn't align with your own. The question we all should be asking is this: why do bad people keep rising to the top of every infrastructure that governs our lives? Politics, media, religion, sport, art. Yeah, art. It's full of fucking rapists, abusers, and paedophiles. And sometimes in art, people say the stupidest fucking shit you've ever heard. Maybe we need bad people in art because of their transgressive thinking. No, that's stupid fucking shit. You don't molest someone and get better at drawing. That's not how anything works. The way you push back against this is by getting rid of the enablers. All of the producers that continue to work with these people continue to have jobs in the entertainment industry and nothing ever gets done about them. And more importantly, we need to push back against the new wave of radicalisation. There's no point in asking, is it possible to enjoy art made by an old monster when you, like Jimmy Carr, are actively joining in a process that is making new ones? Don't open for a president who's a sexual abuser. Don't go on podcasts with people that are at the vanguard of new waves of misogyny. I'm furious about this. And you know what it all makes me realise? Everyone has forgotten who Hitler is and what he did apart from me. You know the movie Yesterday, where everyone forgets the music of the Beatles? That is my life, except instead of the music of the Beatles, it's the atrocities committed by Adolf Hitler, and I am the increasingly strained-looking British Indian man at the centre of things trying to remind people of what he did. Comedians are opening for a president of America who openly praised Hitler. Germany, 20% of the people who voted for the descendants of the Nazi Party. And Jimmy Carr is out here making documentaries asking whether it's possible to separate Hitler's art from his wider body of work. And Ricky Gervais definitely doesn't know who Hitler is. What's my evidence for this? What he's saying about me on stage, right? The thing he's saying about me on stage is me calling him a shit comedian, which I did do, which is obviously very funny after I give a long speech about the moral obligation of the comedy industry. And it turns out what I said was, he's a shit comedian. Oh, goodness me, we appear to be in the presence of a whit. Truly, Dorothy Parker has been reborn as Brown Man. He's saying that me calling him a shit comedian is like Hitler accusing someone of anti-Semitism. Now, I think what he means is hypocritical on both parts for us to say those things. But here is my assertion. Ricky Gervais doesn't know who Hitler is, because if he did, he would know Hitler would never call someone anti-Semitic and mean it as a bad thing. Guys, Hitler loved anti-Semitism. It was kind of his whole deal. And if he called someone anti-Semitic, he would mean it as a compliment or a simple observation. An observation which we have to concede comes from the leading expert in the field in the history of the human race. If we transpose this analogy back to what Ricky Gervais is saying about me, he is saying that I am to shit comedy as Hitler is to anti-Semitism, i.e. the leading expert in the field in the history of the human race, all of which makes me the most qualified person of all time to declare once and for all that Ricky Gervais is a shit fucking comedian. Looks like somebody was a cheeky boy. Did anybody order a cheeky boy? Bing bong, he's here. He said he wasn't going to say the names, and then he said, I'm adorable. Daisy at pbjmanagement.co.uk is her real email address. So guys, I was looking in my fridge the other day and I realised, how the fuck will that fucking work? Especially not with the next bit. Oh, the next bit's cheeky. The next bit is about a man with whom I've become dangerously obsessed, a man called Brian Johnson. Now, he spells Brian B-R-Y-A-N, which I already consider to be something of a red flag. Now, he's a billionaire. He founded a company, sold it to a different company, and now he's a dollar billionaire. And he doesn't have a job anymore. He spends all of his time and $2.5 million a year on something he does that he calls a rejuvenation program. He is trying to reverse the aging process, and it's good that there are people vaguely nodding at the front, because if people in the audience haven't heard of him, it sounds like I made him up. He has a team of doctors monitoring his health and fitness at all times, through nutritionists, making him specially prepared meals, and a team of sleep specialists monitoring exactly how much and what quality of sleep he gets every single night. Now, he says the aim of this is to reverse the aging process. Full disclosure, I first heard about him when he gave an interview a few years ago where he acknowledged that as part of this process, for a 3-year period, he was receiving regular plasma transfusions from his teenage son. Now, he says the short-term goal is to reverse the aging process, but the long-term goal is to defy death. Now, we're all good people in here, but I can't be the only person who hears that and doesn't immediately think, well, I've never wanted someone to be hit by a car more in my fucking life. I want him run over and killed like the end of One Day, spoiler alert. I want him dead as fuck. And when I said that to a friend of mine, he said, if that happens, you'll feel bad. No, I will masturbate. I will masturbate. With God as my witness, if you hear Brian Johnson has been killed in a car accident, know wherever I am, I have immediately begun to masturbate. I don't care where I am. I don't care if I'm in a mosque, a church, or a school. I will immediately masturbate. And to be clear, I'm a childless Hindu with no teaching qualifications, so I shouldn't be in any of those places. So help me, I will ruin a funeral if I have to. Because I become sexually aroused by the thought of this man dying and understanding that you can't buy your way out of the human condition. You're born, you live, you die. That is increasingly all we have in common with some of these super rich fucks. And the fact that he thinks he can spend $2.5 million a year on this from now until the end of recorded time is evidence, if more were needed, that billionaires should not exist. Every billionaire is a fucking policy failure. It's a failure of a responsible, grown-up and crucially enforced taxation regime. If billionaires are going to continue to exist, then it can only be on this basis that we get to have a bit of our own fun. We should make a list of all of the billionaires that have children and then randomly murder half, just to see... Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise we'd only sold tickets to fucking pussies. Oh, I didn't realise the London Cuck Society was having its goddamn AGM in here. Randomly murder half of billionaires with children. Fine, some support. Are the rest of you not curious to see how many Batmen we can get going? Why are you not curious to see if we murder enough billionaires, how many of their children we can force to seek revenge in the shadows? Where did our sense of wonder go as a nation? We used to make things! If they're not willing to participate in the Batman program, aka the Bat program, then I'm afraid to say they have got to go. I fucking hate billionaires. I cannot, however, take such a strong position on millionaires because I'm simply friends with too many. I am friends with too many millionaires. And that's not my fault. I haven't been out carousing with the Rockefellers. I've exclusively socialised with stand-up comedians since 2009. How was I supposed to know that people were going to make money from podcasts? They're not even good shows. Two cunts have made millions from one of the cunts saying, ooh, sandwiches are good, and the other cunt saying, yeah, they are. I'm a genie. Oh. Congratulations, fellas. You've identified that people think food is good and like to talk about it. Why not have another dump truck filled with money in an afternoon with Robert De Niro? By all means. And the thing that annoys me most about Brian Johnson is he's not special, is he? He's not the first person who discover we're gonna die and then think, well, that's bad. We're all constantly consumed by thoughts of our own mortality, right? Hello? Hello? Guys, is this relatable material? You know what it's like sometimes when you're out at a party and you're having a good time and you're suddenly crushed by an overwhelming wave of sadness as it occurs to you that one day everyone at that party, including you, will be dead. Hello? Is this relatable material? You just had your head in your hands. Is this relatable material? Some of you are looking at me with a look that seems to say, this is not relatable at all, and I'll be honest with you, this is the first time it's occurred to us. The rest of you, like you, are looking at me with a facial expression that seems to say, yeah, it is relatable, Nish, but it's the kind of thing we come to comedy to escape from. Listen, we're all consumed by thoughts of our own mortality. The second hardest thing about getting older is that people your age start dying. And that's happened to me this year. I'm 39 years old. I'm only at the start of that process, but this year, people my age started dying. And when people your age start dying, you understand death is not some abstract thing. It's coming for all of us. And when you realise that, you know who you're most jealous of? People with strong religious belief. I'm not condescending to you if that's you. I genuinely think it must be amazing to have a belief system in place to process what happens after we die. But no one I know has religious belief anymore. Everyone's atheist or agnostic or like me. I'm a lapsed Hindu. One of my friends is a lapsed Jew. One of my friends is a lapsed Muslim. My best friend is a lapsed Christian. And he always says, when I was a Christian, my life was so different. And I said, how? Give me one example. And he said, until I was 6 years old, I thought Jesus was my best friend. Isn't that a nice thing? And he said, now my life's so different. And I said, well, it's not that different, because ultimately your best friend is still a charismatic, bearded brown man who spoke in front of large crowds and did have some opinions that proved to be controversial in his lifetime. And he said, I don't actually consider you to be my best friend. And I said, you will deny me 3 times! I'm a cheeky little boy saying I like Jesus. That's the second hardest thing about getting older. The hardest thing about getting older is you have to do it with yourself. And no one fucking warns you about that shit, man. There's some young people in the front row. Let me tell you something that no one else is gonna fucking tell you, okay? Aging, here's all aging is. It's looking in a mirror and seeing the same stupid piece of shit, make the same mistakes over and over again, year after year, and refuse to improve. And that audible intake of breath you can hear is everyone over 35 observing the accuracy of that as an observation. And the only reason I'm warning you about it is no one else is going to tell you. Because you know what they're going to tell you? Oh my God, the hardest thing about aging is that you have to do it with someone else. No! The hardest thing is you have to do it with yourself. People always say to me, oh my God, it must be so hard for you, because I've been in a relationship for 13 years. And occasionally people say, oh my God, that must be hard. Listen, it's not without its challenges. Sometimes it can be hard to present yourself as a sexual prospect to someone who 4 hours earlier you said this to. Can you just check and see if it's a hemorrhoid? Like, that is hard. It turns out it wasn't. I was just wiping too hard, right? That is hard. But at the end of the day, I still like my girlfriend. I don't like myself. I still enjoy spending time with my girlfriend. I still like talking to my girlfriend. I don't, in low moments, contemplate killing my girlfriend. I still enjoy sex with my girlfriend. Listen, I do still masturbate, but at this point, there's no sexual component, and it's purely a way of managing my anxiety. Every time I have masturbated in the last 12 months, the initial thought was, I'm gonna die soon, I better knock one out. And that is the way it's gonna be for the rest of my life unless someone runs Brian Johnson over with their fucking car. Please! The person I relate to most from all of human existence is, you know, in the ashes of Pompeii, they just found one guy just on his back holding his dick. That is the most relatable person that has ever lived. And occasionally scientists will say, we can't know he was masturbating. We know he was masturbating. What could be more fundamentally human than in AD 79 looking out of your window and seeing a river of fire come towards you and just thinking, one more for the road. Oh, Captain, my Captain. And listen, I am thinking of ways to manage an anxiety disorder because I was diagnosed with one at the start of last year. And when I was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, my first thought was, I wonder where that came from. Then I had a conversation with my mother about the fact that my sister-in-law had just given birth to my nephew, my parents' first grandchild. I said, Mum, this is incredible. You're a grandma. And she said, yeah, it is good. But on the other hand, it's another person I have to worry about dying. And I thought, that's where it's come from. The apple has not fallen far from the tree. A phrase that would cause my mother to say, apples fall from trees all the time, they're the silent killer. Now look, I'm trying to manage my mental health problems in the healthiest way possible, because I can't do what all my friends are doing, which is just managing them by taking drugs. All my friends are just taking marijuana and magic mushrooms. And look, I know that these things have medicinal properties, but the reality is this: my friends did loads of drugs in their teen years, 20s, and early 30s, when you're supposed to do them. I did fuck all drugs. I never macro dose, so I can't now micro dose. They know what drugs are useful for them and what amounts they need to do in a way that's medically helpful. And I've done fuck all drugs. Listen, I have smoked weed, but so much less weed than you think I have based on my haircut, beard, and taste in music. And apart from that, the only other drug I've taken is MDMA, which I've taken on 2 separate occasions at music festivals. The first time was in 2012. I was with my friend Liz. I thought, Liz is going to take it. And then when she was taking it, she said, listen, okay, I'm not pressuring you to take this MDMA, but if you take it, I will look after you. And I thought, I've known Liz a long time. I really trust Liz. This is as good a time as any for me to try this. So I took the MDMA. Within 5 minutes of me taking the MDMA, I would say Liz regretted that offer more than any she has ever made in her entire fucking life. Because within 5 minutes of me taking the MDMA, I was this close to her face, and I was just saying, Liz! Liz! It's not working! Liz! It's not working! Liz! I think I've broken drugs! I kept shouting, I think I've broken drugs, with my pupils the size of saucepans. Imagine being in Liz's position and trying to come up on MDMA while a man who looks like a fire-damaged waxwork of comedian Jason Mantzoukas is repeatedly screaming the phrase, I think I've broken drugs. And the second time I took it, I did have a better time, but only because my friend and girlfriend dusted it into my beer like giving a dog deworming medication. And apart from that, I have done no other drugs. I have never taken cocaine, which I imagine will be a great source of relief to every single person in this room, because no one has got to this point in the show and is thinking, this guy needs to do some cocaine. I actually think he would benefit from talking faster and more intensely about himself, his opinions, and his emotions. Never taken cocaine, never going to. You can't start taking cocaine at 39. No story that ends well involves the sentence, and at the dawn of his 40s, he embraced the cane. But when I said to my friend Matt, I've never taken cocaine and I'm never going to, the only thing he said was, with that nose, what a waste. So look, I'm trying to deal with these problems in the healthiest way possible. I'm doing so much therapy, and it's going real bad. Oh, it's going bad. But that's not my therapist's fault. I need to make that clear. My therapist is an incredible person and a very, very qualified mental health professional. The problem is with me and the little thing I like to call my personality, right? My personality, the problem with it is that I'm an incredibly unfortunate combination of unbelievably anxious, but also phenomenally arrogant. So, this is how my therapy process goes. She, a mental health professional with decades of experience, will say something to me. Out loud, I'll say, but in my head, I'll think, I don't think that's true. Then, a month later, something will happen, and I'll think, oh yeah, she was right! What a pro! Everything that's wrong in the way that I interact with my mental health journey can be found in events that take place between the end of January and the start of March last year. So, at the end of January, she diagnoses me after about 4 years of working together with a generalised anxiety disorder. The next week, I come back to therapy and say the one sentence I imagine medical professionals must dread hearing the most from their patients: I have done some of my own research. And I said, I've actually come to the conclusion that it's good to have a bit of an anxiety disorder because it keeps you aware of your immediate surroundings and the threats that might be contained in your vicinity. And she said, you have no understanding of the basics of this condition. What you are describing is a spidey sense from Spider-Man. And she said, anxiety is not about being aware of the threats in your vicinity. It's being worried about things that have happened or will happen. If anything, it keeps you more vulnerable in the moment because you're never present in your body, because you're worrying about things that have happened or will happen. And out loud I said, and in my head I thought, I don't think that's true. Then, 5 weeks later, at the start of March, I found myself off to New York for work. I land at JFK Airport, I get a taxi back to my friend's flat where I'm staying, I get out of the taxi, I speak to my girlfriend for 10 minutes, and at the end of those 10 minutes I say, okay, I better go inside and hang up the phone. As I hang up the phone, that is the moment that it occurs to me that I have left my fucking passport on the seat of the cab, a cab that has long since disappeared into the New York night. Now, if my anxiety was keeping me aware of the threats in my vicinity, surely it would have been aware that the most crucial document in my possession was on the seat next to me where I placed it, unbelievably, for safekeeping. But in reality, I was somewhat distracted, being very worried about a faux pas I'd made at a drinks event in 2011. So I was not, shall we say, in my body. Unfortunately, the passport has gone. The grammar fans in the crowd will know that means it's become something that has happened. Therefore, it comes back into anxiety's purview, and I start doing what everyone with an anxiety disorder in this room does, which is vibrate with rage, and then immediately start beating the shit out of myself. At one point, I said to my own reflection, what's the point of you? Which I think we can all agree is an unhelpful overreaction. Then I thought, okay, I'm on my own in this apartment, I'm freaking out, I just need voices in the room. Let me just hit play on whatever the next podcast is on my podcast app. Unfortunately, the next podcast on my podcast app was an hour-and-a-half long interview with John Oliver. And at one point, I sincerely thought, I bet John Oliver never loses his passport. And as if that wasn't insane enough, the next thing I thought was, and this is why you'll never have his career. That's not why! I'm not going to have John Oliver's career. I'm pretty sure John, a man who I've met once and have now immediately jumped to first-name terms with without consultation, has his career because of hard work and talent, not based on his ability to retain documents. I'm pretty sure that once a year, John Oliver is just walking down the road and someone jumps out and says, hey, Oliver, where's your passport? And he says, right here. And they go, wow, have another Emmy. I'm pretty sure that's not how, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure. So the next day, I get up. My girlfriend, much calmer head in these kinds of situations, has found a UK consulate in New York who can issue me with a temporary passport. I'm going to have to go home immediately and lose a month's worth of work, but I am going to be able to get home. Now, I swing open the front door of that block of flats, and what greets me in the street is little short of a miracle, because stood directly in front of me is the taxi driver from the night before, and he is holding in his hands my fucking passport. If you're applauding that, wait until you hear what he did, okay? So this guy drops me off on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I'm his last fare of the night. He drives an hour and a half back to where he lives in Jersey. When he finishes that journey, he does what he does at the end of every shift, which is clean his cab. He then finds my passport and doesn't do what any of us, including me, would have done under the circumstances, which is think, fucking hell, I'll deal with that in the morning. He got back in his taxi, drove back to where he had dropped me off, slept in his fucking car for 2 hours, and then waited for me in the street for 45 minutes. His name was Prince. To me, he will always be a king. And when he told me... what he had done, I said, Prince, why did you do this? I so appreciate that you did this, but why did you do this? Now, some background. The thing you need to know about Prince is his family's Indian. He's from Punjab, my family's from Kerala. In the cab ride over, we talked at some length about our shared Indian ancestry and upbringing. So when I asked him why he'd done it, he said this to me. At the end of the day, I thought, I'm Indian, this kid's Indian. I don't want an Indian kid running around New York without a passport. I know how scary that can be. And in that moment, I realised something genuinely profound. Racism is incredible when it benefits you. Because based on the look in Prince's face, if that had been a white guy's passport, he would have immediately frisbeed it into a New York City sewer, whipped the bandana off a Ninja Turtle while shouting, "That's for giving one of my jewels to that woman." And look, because this really isn't a character, I went on stage that night at a comedy club in New York and retold this story exactly as I've told it to you. Now, at this point, a woman asked a question. I think the only relevant question that's worth asking at this juncture, which is... Did you pay him? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. It is correct. Also, thank you for not asking the question 10 separate people have asked, which is, do you have ADHD? I know you fucking cunts have been sat there thinking that this entire story. The first time someone said it to me, I thought, rude. Then, at the 10th time, I thought, I should look into this. I said to my therapist, do you think I have ADHD, or do you think everyone thinks everyone has ADHD now because of the internet? Do you know what she said? Yes to both. And when I said why, she said, because I sent you a referral to an ADHD specialist a month ago and you still haven't replied to the email. So thank you for asking that question. And thank you for not asking the question a man in Raleigh, North Carolina asked me, which was, which Ninja Turtle? That motherfucker definitely has ADHD. Also, of course, it was Leonardo. It's the funniest if it's Leonardo. So anyway, listen, well, I did give him money. I gave him $1,000. I went and got it out of a bank. I couldn't even go to an ATM. I had to go into a bank and speak to a fucking human being like it was goddamn 1997. I went into the bank and I said, listen, can I get $1,000 out of my account? Here's my debit card. And the guy said, listen, for that amount, I'm going to need to see some photo ID. I said, no problem, because by that point, my passport was stapled to my fucking hand. I gave him $1,000. Now, let's not be crass about this, but let's be honest about it. You know how much you paid for a ticket. You can see this room is full. So you know it is no skin off my dick to give this guy $1,000. I've never said that before. I can't believe... I can't believe the filming is when I chose to ad-lib no skin off my dick. Jesus fucking Christ. It was truly no hair off my ball bag. Look, you can tell it's fine. You can tell it's fine for me to give this guy $1,000, right? You understand the maths. Now, what I would say is in a random New York City comedy club, there was less of an awareness of my financial situation or wider body of work. So when I announced that I'd given this man $1,000, immediate audible suspicion broke out in the room as people just started loudly saying, how did this man have access at that speed to $1,000 in cash? Is he a sultan? Is he a drug dealer? Is he one of the ones that owns Manchester City? There was huge speculation. I heard the speculation, became defensive, and find myself saying, I'm actually very famous at home! At which point, a woman sat right in the front row, puts up her hand and says, I'm from England and I've never heard of you! So look, I'm trying to deal with my mental health problems. I'm listening to my therapist, sometimes a month after she tells me things, but I am listening to her. And she and I have been working together for nearly half a decade now. I initially started seeing her because I was behaving weirdly. That turned out to be symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder due to a period of time where I was receiving death threats and was the subject of hostile articles in the right-wing press in this country because they said I was saying dangerously left-wing things. You know, like racism is bad and women are nice. You know, that sort of dangerously left-wing stuff. We dealt with the PTSD, and now we're just going backwards through the timeline. Christopher Nolaning this motherfucker, Oppenheimering this bitch, hopping around the timeline. We dealt with anxiety, we're going to get to depression, we will get to ADHD when I remember to reply to that email. But one of the first things she said to me was this. I said, listen, I'm having trouble sleeping. That's not an uncommon thing in my life. When there's something going on, I often am unable to sleep. And she said, how much exercise are you doing per week? And I said, because I think exercise is fucking boring, and I think people who talk about it with too much enthusiasm shouldn't be allowed to have children. I really believe that. Okay? Listen, I know that we want to pass on the genes of our healthiest people, but at what cost? The cost of interesting conversation. And I said this to her, and she said, I don't care. I'm not opening a conversation with you about exercise. I'm telling you, you have to exercise for your physical, but also your mental well-being. And I was saying to my friend, how the fuck am I going to exercise? I'm fucking bored of exercise. And he said, why don't you come and play football with us? My friends meet every Tuesday and play football. I said, I love football, but I'm bad at it. He said, we're all comedians. We're all bad at football. So come down. And I started going. And lo and behold, I fucking loved it. For 3 years, I was doing 90 minutes of exercise per week. Now, I know that that is not enough, but that is an on-average increase in my life of 90 minutes a week. Then, in the summer of 2023, I suffered a terrible sporting injury. I broke my little finger. Now, that's not supposed to get a fucking laugh. That's supposed to get, like, a little bit of sympathy from the audience that I then... No, don't patronise me now! It was supposed to get sympathy, and then I throw the sympathy back in the audience's face when they find out the slapstick fucking way I injured myself. Based on how much people like you fucking laughed at just me breaking my finger, when you find out how I did it, you're gonna spontaneously combust in a cloud of jizz. Okay, get ready. We're about to lose audience members because the way I broke my finger was that during a game of football, I sat on my hand. Everybody's jizzing everywhere. It's like Pompeii up in here. I will tell you the full story, okay? I was playing football and I was in goal. Everyone has to go in goal for 10 minutes. That's how the rules of five-a-side football work. No one likes it, but everyone does it. I'm playing in goal and my friend is bearing down on goal. But he goes to shoot this way, so I start to crouch down. At the last minute, he cuts across the ball, so it goes across my body, and I managed to flip my body weight in the opposite direction and save the shot with this boot. I want it known that I fucking saved the shot, okay? And the reason I want it known is it was the high point of my sporting career that was followed by the low point of my sporting career. Because I've done so little exercise in my life, I think I've got some muscles I've never used. So the speed of me doing this caused me to pull a muscle in my neck. I fell backwards like this, and then landed with my full body weight on my little finger via my arse. I broke my little finger with my own arse, which doesn't even make sense because my arse is thick, juicy and delicious. However, I didn't realise that I'd broken my finger. This is a public service announcement. You have fewer pain receptors in your fingers and toes than you do in other parts of your body. So if you think you have badly bruised your finger or toe, you have probably broken your finger or toe. Now, I did not realise this, so I was just plastering it out myself and going about my business. 3 days later, I found myself on the set of a television show, and a medic who's there for insurance purposes says, can I help you with anything medical? I say, ooh, yes. Can you tape up my finger properly? Because it's badly bruised. She takes one look at my finger and says, that finger is broken. And I said, it's bruised! She said, it's broken. I said, it's bruised! She said, it's broken. Are you noticing a pattern emerging here with me and medical professionals? At one point I said, listen, I know you're a medical professional, but at the end of the day, you're white, I'm Indian, medicine comes naturally to my people, okay? It occurs naturally in our bloodstream like midichlorians and the Force. And she said, and I don't think this is a textbook-approved phrase, that finger is fucking broken. And I went in search of a second, browner opinion. Unfortunately, one was not available due to the fact that I was in a place called the Isle of Wight, which... if you've not been, is, as the name suggests. They are delivering on being an island of white people to the extent I think is where they make them. Just assembling them in factories with Mumford & Sons blaring out over the PA system so everyone comes out that extra nice crusty white. So I went to see a white doctor on the Isle of Wight who did a white x-ray on my brown hand and said, yeah, that finger is broken. It turns out the medical professional knows more than the man who drank his way to a joint honours degree in history and English literature. But then she said this, listen, when I say it's broken, that's actually a misnomer. What I mean is it's dislocated. Now, this is a good thing because it means it's an easier fix. All I have to do is pull it out and pop it back in again. I said, fantastic, Doc, let's get this show on the road. I need to be back on the set of this TV show. The people need entertainment. And she said, do you want any gas or air? And I said, why? I'm not a fucking prego. Because that's the thing about toxic masculinity. It flares up sometimes for no reason. It's like athlete's foot of the very soul. And she said, do you want any pain medication? And I said, let me summarise the events of the last 3 days for you, Doc. I broke my finger and then have just been walking around like this the whole time without even realising it was broken. What does that tell you? It tells you I've got a very high pain threshold. And then I fainted. I fainted, to be clear, not when she pulled on my finger. When she touched my hand, the thought of her pulling on my finger caused my brain to go into immediate shutdown mode. I pass out on the floor of A&E in the Isle of Wight, and then I learned something about myself. I learned that I'm arrogant on a subconscious level. I know that I'm arrogant on a conscious level. Horrible to understand, it extends to my subconscious, as I found out when I attempted to style out a faint as soon as I regained consciousness. She did this, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kumar. And the first thing I said was, may I help you? As if she had inconvenienced me. So then by this point, I'd landed on the finger and broken it even worse, so I had to come home and get it operated on. And now it bends like this, but apart from that, it's absolutely fine. Now, listen, this is supposed to be where this bit of the fucking show ends. Then, on the 1st of October last year, in the middle of the UK leg of this tour, something happened. I was back playing in my regular game of Tuesday football, and I was running back into my position. I'm a defender. I'm a defender. I was running back into my position, and out of the corner of this eye, I can see that my friend is about to take a shot. I think he hasn't seen me. I could just spin my body this way, stick this foot out, and knock the ball out of his path and prevent him from taking the shot. Now, I am correct about all of these things. I spin this way, stick this foot out, knock the ball out of his path, prevent him from taking the shot. Here's what I don't prevent him from doing, starting to take the shot. This man swings into the space where he thought the ball was and crashes studs first into the top of my foot. And all I can think in that moment is, I don't think that is bruised. And I'm only telling you this, Hackney, because I consider this story to be one of great personal growth. Because what did I do? I immediately went to hospital. I went to hospital and had an x-ray done on my foot, and the doctor came out and said, yeah, you've broken your toe. Now, when I say you've broken your toe, that's actually a misnomer. What I mean is you've dislocated your toe. Now, this is a good thing because it means it's an easier fix. All I have to do is pull it out and pop it back in again. And then she said, do you want any pain medication? And I said, I want every piece of pain medication you have in this hospital. Here's what I want you to do. Get all of it, put it on a table, split it in half. Take the first half, shove it down my throat. Take the second half, ram it up my arse. While we wait for those two groups to meet in the middle, I want you to inject me full of whatever killed Michael Jackson. She said, lidocaine will suffice. She injects my foot with lidocaine, it goes numb. She pulls it out. Pops it back in again. And then I had to wrap my foot in a bandage, and for the next month, I had to do shows sat on that stool, thus failing to fulfill 50% of my job description as a stand-up comedian. But then after that, it was absolutely fine. And initially, I was reluctant to tell either of these stories on stage, right? Because it doesn't feel consistent with my personal brand. This is not how you, my audience, the fuming, disgruntled leftists, want me to have injured my neck, hand, and foot, is it? You want me to have injured my neck because I was nodding too vigorously at a Naomi Klein op-ed piece? You want me to have injured my hand and foot because I was banging on the table while stamping on the floor and shouting, injustice is bad! But then I had to think about it, and I realised nothing other than these two stories could be more central to the core of my personal brand, because ultimately, a summary of both is that I hurt myself quite badly by turning too enthusiastically to the left. So at the end of the day, it's on brand. So that's why I hate Brian Johnson. Listen, I think fundamentally, Brian Johnson and I are quite similar men, right? We're both incredibly anxious about death. Now, I'm fucking up all the time. I'm not listening to my therapist and I'm breaking my bones with my own fucking ass. But I am broadly trying to do the right thing, which is sort out my mental health. Now, I know that's something I can do because I have the financial resources to do it. But Brian Johnson is spending $2.5 million a year. Could he not divert some of those funds to speak to a mental health professional? Because if you don't deal with your mental health problems, you get fucking weird. And he is getting fucking weird. In January, he went on Twitter and posted 2 graphs. One measuring the strength and duration of his erections, and the other measuring the strength and duration of his son's erections. Now listen, we're all against mass incarceration, but if someone came up to you in the street and said, hey, I just measured my son's dick, you'd say, oh, jail, immediate jail. But Brian Johnson is also evidence of everything that is going wrong in the world right now. Because the richest, most powerful people on this planet are interested in 2 things: keeping themselves alive and keeping themselves rich. And they are willing to burn the planet we live on in order to do that. And they have found an alliance with white supremacists. There is an alliance brewing between deregulated capitalists and white supremacists. And you can see all of it in the Trump inauguration. Donald Trump being inaugurated as president of America, a beacon of hope to white supremacists all over the world. Who is in the front row of his inauguration? Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon. Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. And Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google. Oh, we must be so pleased with the representation. And what you see is everything that's going wrong with the world. An alliance between white supremacists and deregulated capitalists. They both want to smash the state. The white supremacists because they want to drag us back to the 19th century in terms of social progress. And the deregulated capitalists know that in that smashed state, there is money to be made. And there has to be money to be made. Why else would Elon Musk, a man who made his fortune selling electric cars, now be working for a president of America so hostile to renewable energy that 4 weeks ago he signed an executive order promising to boost the US coal industry? Coal! Are you fucking kidding me? Coal! The only excuse for opening a coal mine in 2025 is if your plan is to do it in the northeast of England and your plan is to open the coal mine and then immediately close it to stimulate boys' interest in ballet in the region. And you are running some Billy Elliot bullshit. And listen, every time I think about what's being done to us, I'm filled with rage. And I don't have any solutions for you. I just know that all of you are filled with rage, and I wanted you to know that you're not alone. And rage, conveniently, brings us to the final point on our set list tonight. And rage, luckily, is something I am quite the expert in. Feeling it? Sure. Causing it? Absolument. I'm what's known as a rage top and a rage bottom. I am a rage verse, capable of giving and receiving rage and enjoying both in equal measure. I've caused rage, sure. I've read the death threats, I've read the articles, but I've also felt the purest rage possible. And I'm now going to tell you about the time I met a man called Boris Johnson. Now, just by the size of that reaction, I can tell I have oversold this story. To be clear, I did not in any way, shape or form meet Boris Johnson. Here's what happened. In the summer of 2022, I was making a television programme called Hold the Front Page with my friend Josh Widdicombe as part of an outreach programme I'm part of to get more white comedians on television. And the men ones as well. Keep your women, give me your Widdicombe's, your Gambles, your Acasters. These are the truly oppressed minority. And the premise of the show was that Josh and I would go and work as local journalists at real local newspapers and try and get real articles in them. Sometimes we would succeed, mainly though we would fail, but the failure would be funny and it would do what we were intending to do, which is celebrate local journalists, local newspapers and local communities. It was a positive show, apart from one day in the summer of 2022. We're in the northwest of England, in Blackpool, and out of nowhere I get a call from my editor and she says this: Boris Johnson is coming here tomorrow. Now, to take you back to that time, I need to remind you of 2 things. He was still Prime Minister, but he was in the process of being washed away in a deluge of scandal that would eventually drive him from office, most notably that during the pandemic he violated his own lockdown regulations by having people in his fucking residence, right? Now, this was not a surprise to anyone who'd paid even the slightest bit of attention to Boris Johnson. He never should have been allowed to be fucking Prime Minister of this country. It's legally possible to describe him as being both a liar and a racist without any use of the word adjacent in our press because of the things that he has said and done. Also, of course he shouldn't have been allowed to be in charge of the fucking country. He's not in charge of his goddamn sperm. At one point in 2020, his Wikipedia page listed his number of children as being 5 or 6, like he was a French king from the Middle Ages or Genghis Khan. He never should have been in that position. He was in that position, but he was in real trouble. He hadn't been seen for a couple of days, and out of nowhere, he calls a press conference at a school in Blackpool. And she says, it's happening in this school, on our patch, the editor. And I say to her, oh my God, can we go? She said, I'll ask. She submits a formal request to 10 Downing Street's press accreditation team for press passes for me and Josh Widdicombe. The speed of the no she received suggests the presence of my name on the Downing Street servers had activated some kind of angry brown man alarm. Angry brown man, beep, beep, beep. Get Johnson in the bunker, beep, beep, beep. And she said, they've said no. And I said, well, I guess that's that. We'll have to cover a different story. And she said this to me, I thought you came here to be journalists. I said, what the fuck? She said, at the start of this week, you said, we're come here to do the job of journalist properly. I said, that's absolutely true. And she said, well, journalism is a job that we do whether or not we have permission to do it, okay? Especially not when that permission is being sought by some of the people that we are supposed to be holding to account. We get turned down for press passes all the time. That doesn't stop us from doing our job. So I said, what are we supposed to do? She said, he can't teleport in. Go down there, stand by the entrance, shout a question. If he responds, that's a story. If he doesn't respond, that's also a story. And then she said this, may I remind you that Woodward and Bernstein had their White House press passes revoked when they broke the Watergate story. And that did make me say, okay, maybe pipe down, lady, because this is not Woodward and Bernstein. This is a moron and his talentless friend, okay? But she said, listen, you said you come here to do the job. I said, yeah, we did, and we won't let you down. So the next day, Josh is driving us to the school where this thing is taking place, and whilst we're being filmed on camera, he turns to me and says, Nish, don't do anything silly. Then they cut all of the cameras and he turns to me and says, don't do anything silly. He knows me. I'm a cheeky boy. Get out of the car. The first thing I see is a police motorbike, followed by 2 police cars, followed by an SUV with blacked out windows, followed by 2 more police cars and another police motorbike. And I realise that this is Boris Johnson's car. Now I cannot, nor will I ever be able to adequately explain why I did what I did next, but I started running. Top speed at the Prime Minister's car. This is the only time I'll ever say this. If I'd been assassinated, it would have been at least partially my own fault. Josh, I think out of a sense of a preservation of his friend's life, starts running behind me as if to say, there's a white guy with him, don't shoot! The cameraman, who's the only person who remembers we're making a TV show, starts running behind us filming. The sound man, who was fixing something on the camera and was now attached to it, is being dragged along behind him. And the 4 of us are just running in a line, like a high-tech, all-male Benny Hill tribute act. And at this point, I have no memory of the next 90 seconds of my life. Too much adrenaline in my body, my brain wasn't making new memories. The next thing I can remember is the doors of the school slamming shut in our face, locking Johnson and his entourage inside and me and Josh outside. And at this point, I turn to Josh and say, Josh, I think I called him a piece of shit. And Josh says, are you kidding me? And I say, what do you mean? By this point, the cameraman and the sound man have joined us. My friend Simon, the sound man, says, do you want to hear what you just said to the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland? Because here's the thing, Hackney, I had been mic'd the entire time. I was wearing a professional sound recording microphone that was transmitting every single thing I was saying to sound recording equipment Simon was wearing on his hip. He hands me the equipment, he puts the headphones on me, and all I can hear is my own voice, and all I am saying is this, Cut! You can't! You fucking can't! From behind me, I can just hear Josh shout, no, Nish, no! Watching his knighthood disappear like so many tears in the rain. At one point, Josh says, Nish, ask him a question! And the question I asked was, how dare you! And the worst thing about it is he didn't hear me. Is there a better visual representation of the futility of what I've been doing for the last 15 years than screaming cunt at a locked, bulletproof door? And I was screaming it fucking loud as well. The professional sound recording equipment has a screen that has a bar graph that goes up and down, and it's supposed to be different shades of green to denote everything being recorded is of an appropriate volume. This thing started flashing red because it's not a character. I am like this all the fucking time. I am this loud all the fucking time. I have an Apple Watch I can't wear because when I wear it and laugh, it warns me I'm in an area of loud noise above 90 decibels, to which prolonged exposure could cause damage to your hearing. And as if that wasn't bad enough, 2 months ago in Melbourne, Australia, in the middle of one of my fucking stand-up gigs, a woman's Apple Watch called an ambulance. She said, I think it thinks I'm in a tornado. Eventually, the rest of our crew have joined us, including my friend Gavin, very nice man, is the executive producer of the show, in charge of the final edit, who knows what you can and can't say on British television. So he approaches me, and all I'm thinking is, I don't think this is usable material, because let's face it, we as a nation, we're cunt confident. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Us in Australia, absolutely confident. We really are. America, not so much. It turns out you can do a long routine about how you thought it would be good if their president had been assassinated, and they go, absolutely fine. But if you say cunt too loudly, they go, hey, come on. We are cunt confident. This cunt confidence does not, however, extend to our broadcasters who get pretty antsy about the use of that word. So Gavin comes over to me and I say, well, I guess none of that's usable material. He then says a sentence that reminds me I don't have a real job. I know that I don't have a real job, but sometimes it's nice to be reminded, as I was when a colleague in a completely appropriate workplace context was able to say the following phrase, legally we can bleep 3 cunts. Imagine if you went to work on Monday and someone just said that in a fucking meeting. And the worst thing about it is, he was completely correct. Sky, the broadcaster that carried the show in the UK, will let you say the word cunt as long as it is bleeped, and even if it's bleeped, it can only be 3 times. So it went on TV. You can watch it on YouTube and TikTok literally right now. You see me running at Boris Johnson's car, and you hear me shout, you fucking beep! But you know what I'm saying. If they've let the word fucking be aired uncensored, but they've censored the next word, you know what the next word is. No one is watching that footage and thinks I'm saying, you fucking legend. No one is doing that. So it went out on television, and I watched it with my girlfriend, and she said, listen, I know this whole thing now is it's not a character, but even for you, this is particularly you. She said, why are you so angry? That's a question she gets asked all the time. It's a question I get asked all the time. It's a question I imagine a lot of you get asked all the time. And I know what I'm supposed to say as this thing draws to a close is this. Look, we need to find a way of being less angry. We need to find a way of talking to people that disagree with us politically in a way that's more respectful and less heated. And I do think that. But you know what I also think? Part of the reason so many of us are so angry is a lot of fucked up shit has happened in the last 25 years, and no one has been held responsible or even talks about how fucked up it actually was, man. In 2008, the financial sector bankrupted all of our countries after decades of their own bad behaviour. We bailed them out, and none of them did a fucking second's prison time, and now none of them wants to pay their appropriate amount of tax. Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, 3 separate occasions. Bombs have been dropped on innocent children, some of whom, I'll be honest with you, look a fuck of a lot like my little nephew, okay? And if you don't punish wrongdoing when it happens, it has consequences. Look at what's happened in America. If a president tries to overturn the result of a free and fair election and then no one punishes him for it, he is free to run again and mangle and reshape the democracy in his own autocratic image. And what Boris Johnson did to us, to our country, is something we should never, ever be okay with, right? 5 years ago, almost to the day, millions of parents across this country would have had to look in their children's eyes and say, you are not allowed to go out, because they understood in that moment that their children were less vulnerable than some people in society that needed protecting. And so the fact that the man who made those rules couldn't abide by them is something none of us should ever be okay with, which is why I want to ask you a favour. I hope, Hackney, you live long, happy and successful lives. But if in the course of those long, happy and successful lives, you find yourself in a room with Boris Johnson, then what I would ask is that you get this close to his face, like you're me trying to process an MDMA pill in 2012, muster all the cultural confidence we have for using a particular word in our language, and finish the job I wasn't able to. Thank you so much, Hackney. Now look, Now listen. Thank you so much for being here. Now, there is one more bit of the show left to do. I have written some jokes about the things in my fridge. Because I believe in showing willing, I want to respond to feedback as it's offered to me. Now, what I would say is that this is a bit of a creative departure for me, okay? So what I would ask is that you give me grace, okay? Just give me grace. Creative departure, don't do me like they did Dylan at Newport, okay? Let's have a bit of fucking grace in the room, okay? Here's the first one of these jokes. Hey! I need a friendlier delivery system to deliver these jokes. I can't do them the same way I did the rest of the show. Seinfeld doesn't go around going, Pop-Tarts! That's not how it fucking people don't understand anything about art. Hey! I was looking in my fridge the other day and I realised something. Mustard? Well, that's just hot sauce for white people. Give me grace! Mustard! Here's the second one. Hey! I was looking in my fridge the other day and I realised something. The oven and the fridge are the original odd couple. One of them's a big hot box and the other's a cold boy. Give me Jesus fucking Christ! Et tu, brown lady? Fuck me. Okay, those two didn't work. Okay, fine, shake it off. This one, though, this one is gonna work like you wouldn't fucking believe, okay? Hey! I was looking in my fridge the other day and I realised something. The contents of my fridge was on average 25% more expensive in January 2024 than it had been 2 years earlier. This increase is the result of the combination of supply chain disruption, global conflict, and the impact of climate change, and is exacerbated by wage stagnation since the financial crisis of 2008 and the pandemic of 2020. Luckily, I remembered that I spent most of the previous decade insulating myself against the worst effects of these socio-political problems by making jokes about them. It's something that makes me feel deeply ill at ease. By complaining that people my age cannot afford houses, I have bought a house with a fucking fridge. I'm still sometimes unclear why I do this kind of comedy and why an assembled group of you plus some baffled plus ones comes to watch it. In difficult times, I sympathise more with people needing silly or escapist humour. It's essential to have comedy that provides escape or relief, or is just about something relatable from your day-to-day life, like the contents of your fridge or sandwiches. My friends have, much to my chagrin, provided genuine comfort to people all over the world in some of their darkest moments, whilst also, to be fair, making millions of pounds from their stupid fucking food podcast for cunts. Is this even good for me? That's a question I've asked myself repeatedly. I used to think comedy was like therapy, but then I went to therapy. There's a romantic idea of stand-up that you get on stage, tell your truths, and a burden is lifted from yourself. I told my therapist this recently, and she gave me a look that she gives me constantly that seems to say, is this guy worth the money? She told me not only is it not a good idea, it's actively bad for your mental health to repeat unprocessed experiences of trauma because you put yourself in a state of agitation by reliving something you've not properly contextualised. And out loud I said, and in my head I thought, I don't think that's true. The truth is that I loved and still love all kinds of comedy, but I've always had a strong affinity with comedy that makes light of serious subjects. When I was a kid, I was so scared of everything, and I started to go and see live comedy shows when I was 13 years old. The first one was in this room. I was sat right up the top in the back with my mum and dad, and I dragged them here to watch a comedy show. And when the comedians talked about the things that scared me the most and turned them into jokes, I laughed along with other people, and for a second I felt less alone, and that made me feel better. However, sometimes I do see 13-year-olds at my shows and I think, man, maybe that is too young to be a comedy show. If I'm honest, I'm more tense about the parents and their tension at the situation. I actually couldn't give a shit about the kids, those little fucking turds. Of course, they're more thrilled than anyone. They get to go to school the next day and say, Mum and Dad paid for us to see a fat guy say cunt for an hour and a half. Anyway, it helped me then, and it helps me now. Don't get me wrong, I know my job is not essential, especially not in a society on the brink of climate collapse. I've seen the Mad Max films, and there is no one in them doing my job, apart from, to be fair, this motherfucker. So that's why I did this show. Also, maybe I just want to represent South Asians who aren't happy that cunts like Rishi Sunak and Kash Patel have become some of our most famous faces in the West. Or comedians unhappy that some of our most prominent voices have become flag wavers for misogyny, racism and transphobia. Maybe it's because, if I'm honest, I'm entirely unable to do a different type of show because this really isn't a character. I've got no objective distance between my thoughts off stage and on, and have simply, in the words of one of my cousins, monetized a personality disorder. Well, this joke about the fridge has definitely got away from me. I think it's fair to say you all pretty quickly realised this was never really about writing a joke about a fridge, and instead about resolving the key thematic elements of the show as a whole. In conclusion, I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, you're racist. I'm sorry that you had to find out this way, but it is true. If you don't like my comedy, you are a racist. And if you've got a problem with that, me calling you a racist, or indeed if you've got a problem with anything I've said at any point in this entire fucking show, do you know what your fucking racist piece of shit ass can fucking do? Email daisy@pbjmanagement.co.uk. Should love to hear from you. Look, in the end, I think all I'm ever trying to do is make myself and you all feel less alone and less scared of the terror of what's around us and what is to come. And look, if you are scared, I'm scared too. On Monday the 5th of August last year, I had the worst panic attack of my life because of the news. I'd watched too much footage of racists rioting in the streets of my country, or at least what I once thought of as being my country, and now I'm no longer sure. Instead of practicing what I'd learned in therapy, I tried to push through, not contacting my therapist and continuing to make myself tenser and tenser by talking about the riots every day on stage. Eventually, I remembered what my therapist had told me about re-traumatizing myself and thought, she's right again! What a pro! After that, I did some jokes about a situation I'd contextualised and processed, and I felt better. My mum keeps telling me not to worry. I say, that's pretty fucking rich coming from you, lady. Where do you think I get this shit from? She said this to me. Nish, this is a part of getting older. You're at an age now where you're starting to see bad decisions repeat themselves. And I know you're scared. I'm scared of the world my grandchild has just been born into. But you can't give up. In my life, I've come to the conclusion that there are always more good people than bad. And that is worth fighting for. And it was always going to be a fight. The powerful were never going to give up their power or their money without one. And as for these racists, we've beaten them before and we'll do it again. Do you think when I came to this country in 1973, I didn't see men like Elon Musk or Nigel Farage? Sometimes they're called Elon, sometimes they're called Nigel, sometimes they're called Donald, but they're always the same man. And then she said this, do you think it's unfamiliar for me to see footage of people on the streets in England chanting that they love Hitler? And when she said that, I said, Hitler? Do you mean the artist? But I always turn to her for comfort because ultimately we're very similar people. One of the tragedies about parenting is that you look at your children and see only your negative qualities passed on and not the fact that everything good about your children is also because of you. Yes, I'm anxious because my mother is anxious, but I also care because my mum cares. And in the end, I know we'll die in the same way. Shot by police as I run at Boris Johnson and she does the same to Camilla Parker Bowles. Hackney, thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a good time. See you next time. Thanks very much, everybody. Goodbye.